What's popping in the streets, everybody? I believe therefore I'm King Silo. Hope you guys are doing all right today. First and foremost, before we even get started, just want to give a special shout out to everybody that supported your boy. Finally reached my goal. I know I'm obviously a couple days late, but happy 500 subscribers. Thank you all. Give yourselves a pat on the back. I appreciate everybody sharing, subscribing, doing whatever it is that you possibly can to help push and motivate and share the videos to get everybody else to subscribe to the channel. So I definitely appreciate it. As you can see right here, I'm at 501 subscribers. The next goal, as we know, is 600, and then we're going to keep pushing towards that 1K, and I'm going to keep dropping content for you. But obviously, as we guys can see, we got a pretty good topic here. So come on, go ahead and sit down. Make sure, watch step. You don't want to get triggered there because it's going to be one of those type of conversations. So let's go and get it started. So, has social media ruined dance culture? So first and foremost, before we do anything, first let's address directly what we're talking about. If I'm being honest, when it comes to Facebook is all right because Facebook lets you post whole videos, and obviously when we look at IG and TikTok, you're going to be much more successful in terms of posting those small clips of videos because they're only 60 seconds. And you'll probably get a lot more following and shares and hearts and stuff like that via those particular platforms, because that's the max limit that they have for those videos is like a minute. I mean, obviously you can go live and stuff like that, but obviously it's not going to catch the attention as many people as just simply somebody watching a 60-second video, clicking the heart button, and then keeping it pushing. Like, this is what we're programmed to do, or whether it's this now. I know Snapchat even had a part in that for a while, but obviously Snapchat is not as big as it was when it first came out. So really, as we know, IG and TikTok are the ones that are killing it right now. So mainly, I really want to talk about those particular platforms. As I've said before, the only time that Facebook really gets on my damn nerves is just because they monetize the hell out of every video that you post. Even if you do post that waiver, or the disclaimer, I don't expect to make any money, I don't own the rights and stuff like that, Facebook still doesn't care. So they're definitely obviously being dicks about everything when it comes to posting dance, and it's really hard for dancers to thrive on Facebook. That's why honestly we've ran to these other media platforms, because Facebook just doesn't support us like that. And obviously YouTube does a pretty good, an amazing job as far as supporting us and making sure that we can post what we want. We may not be able to make any money at it, but obviously as dancers and artists and stuff like that, we're not expecting immediate compensation for creativity based off of somebody else's work. So I think we can all agree to that. So let's focus mainly on those two platforms. So again, we have the question: has social media ruined dance culture? Now, before we do anything, y'all know how I like to usually do. I broke it down in pros and cons. Simple as that, and then I'll give my overall opinion about it as a whole, and just kind of cut it down to the ones that are mostly important. So let's take a look. So pros, start with that. Pros: communication amongst communities becomes easier. Obviously, I can communicate and show videos and stuff like that to people that are all the way in Russia and stuff like that. I can see what their community looks like. Even if I'm a dancer and I'm looking for a new environment or whatever the case may be, if I want to really know how big the scene is in a particular area, if I'm new and I don't know, don't have the communication nor the people or the contacts to reach out to, I can always just look on social media, see where there's a big following and stuff like that, see where these people are based at. Usually their information is there, or it shows you, or has some type of stamp showing where they're located at, and I can go find that movement. It's easier. So that's definitely a big plus that I don't see any negatives in terms of when looking at, simply making it easier to find community. So that's great all around. Access to real-time information from teachers and instructors. Obviously, back in, literally, I can't even say back in the day, but I'll say realistically, maybe about 10 years ago, doing the Zoom chats and stuff like that, doing online classes, that wasn't popular. That wasn't really co-signed or accepted or really respected by a lot of OGs and veterans, or even people amongst the community, because it's hey, go find these places, So it really kind of got its push, of course, when the pandemic hit. So, being able to access like, so many teachers and stuff like that to where they're actively promoting online classes and courses and stuff like that is great. So it's really good to have that. So that's another plus. Access to instructors and teachers and classes in any capacity is right here at your phone anytime that you need it, or even if your computer, if you got that. And then a general understanding of how to create art using technology at the palm of your hands. So even for me, like, I'm kind of tech savvy, it takes me a while, but I'm also a part of like this generation, as far as like, I'm part of the generation that's used to being extracurricular and being outside and, being extroverted, and then also playing video games and being, introverted and stuff like that. Like I have a good healthy balance. So, when it comes to utilizing technology and stuff like that, this wasn't our focus. It was about being outside. But I've also realized, and that was really where we socialized. That's how you really made friends, is you had to physically go out and make them. This generation, like if you're under the age of 25 or 27, I'll say, then pretty much you've had access to this almost pretty much your entire life. It's always been about Facebook or Twitter or any other social media platforms and stuff like that. You guys have always been able to create the personality, your persona, how you're viewed on social media and stuff like that, your art and stuff like that. You can literally learn how to use filters and editing software and stuff like that on this phone, and you get a general understanding as far as like, oh, I can be creative with my art. I can shoot it from this particular angle. I can shoot it in negative. I can shoot it in slow motion. I can have stop motion and stuff like that. I can pixelate it. Like there is even filters in this day and age to where it's like half the work is already done for you guys. It's just right there for you. So you do get like a general understanding as far as like, oh, I can make my art look like this. I can make it look much more cinematic or dramatic than it normally would, than basically just having like a setup camera the way I have it right now. So there's a lot that you can do at your fingertips when it comes to social media platforms and the filters and the options that they give you to create your art. So those are pros, especially if you're somebody who's just looking, I'm not really tech savvy. I just like dancing. Okay, cool. Well, bada boom. We've got dozens and dozens of settings and stuff like that you can just simply slap on there and then boom, post your footage. And it gives you a different perspective or a different type of tone or aesthetic for people that may be pleasing to others. And even for you. So those are the most obvious like pros and stuff like that. Like there are a lot of pros as far as for social media, but there are also a lot of negatives. So let's take a look at that. So cons or negatives. Overexposure of a particular culture. And what I mean by that, and most people don't get it, but I do know that even in certain places, in certain environments, they don't want you recording. And what's happened, and I had a conversation with this guy, I can't remember his name, but I just happen to know who he was because we used to work together, and he was Native American. And of course they have cultural dances and stuff like that. And I know that that's a part of, that's traditional for them. Like not, those particular dances are sacred. They are not taught to particular people because it's a part of their tradition, because they know if like, all right, if I just start teaching this to Billy and Jane and Karen and stuff like that, they're only going to simply just find a way to throw it on social media and start trying to make money off of it. They're not going to appreciate it. They're just simply going to manipulate it and abuse it. So sometimes like an overexposure of a particular culture is not good, because sometimes it needs to remain in this particular environment for it to blossom the way that it needs to. Don't get me wrong, that's a constant rising tide. You'll never really truly be able to stop it, because it doesn't matter how sacred you keep something, unless it's the government hiding secrets, from America and stuff like that, or we're talking about, anything else that, that people don't want you to know on a general basis. You're never going to be able to hide culture. You never are. There's always going to be somebody who's not going to appreciate it, and they're always going to try and take it and run with it. But I would definitely say that some clubs don't like you flashing photos and stuff like that. Some jams that I've seen, particular jams where it's like, hey, you're not allowed to record. Like no recording, no photos, no videos and stuff like that. Some battles and stuff like that. It's just, you have to respect the environment. So obviously, overexposure of a particular culture or tradition can be bad. That's a different one that y'all may want to just kind of think about. Lack of appreciation or easy access. So obviously, let's just take Crump for an example, because I am a Crumper. Because Crump was, for the last 2 years has been a trending topic, because there are so many people who are, as I've said before, so many people want Crump energy, but they don't want to really learn Crump. They don't want to know where it comes from. They don't want to value it. They don't want to learn the fundamentals. They don't want to learn the history. They don't want to know what these movements where these movements came from and the people who created them. It's not to say that they completely created something brand new, like, oh, this particular guy created a wave. Obviously, wave was, from somewhere else. But somebody did bring it in to the community and say, like, hey, this is going to be a piece of creativity that I'm going to use. Not taking ownership of it, but please understand that historically I was the first person to start trying to do that. Clearly everybody is not going to go out and seek information. All they're simply going to do is, I got it, now let me do it. You don't appreciate something like that. There's a famous saying that a famous quote that they say, anything that comes in your life fast will leave out even faster. The easier it is for you to grab onto something and for you to control it, even less value that it holds. You know what I'm saying? When we start talking about value, there's plenty of quotes that you can pull from. Plenty of quotes. Pick one. Pick one. There's thousands out there. But you have to understand is that if you truly appreciate something, you will not focus on simply what's on here. You will literally seek out these places, these cultural rich environments and communities, and you will seek out knowledge and information, and you will seek out the veterans and the OGs and the pioneers and stuff like that, the people who actually laid the foundation in which you're living on. That's one thing I think that people, that's the biggest hurdle that most people get over when they're so connected to social media. Sorry, I keep throwing my phone up, but you know what I'm saying. People don't want to go out and research anymore. Like this generation, like if you're under the age, like I said before, of 27 or at least, 25, there's a high probability that you've been spoiled by social media, because everything that you could possibly need to prove or to make people believe that you are this entity or this persona within the dance community is at your fingertips. Majority of you have never traveled to where these dances that you're doing actually were created. Go to the boroughs where these places were created. You've never been there. The only thing that you need is social media to tell you these movements. And guess what? Boom. I put dancer or freestyler or crumper or pop or whatever the case next to my name. So again, it's just a lack of appreciation, because again, you never had to work for it. My biggest one I always tell people, for some, maybe if it's still not reaching to you, if someone they always talk about like your first car should be something that's workable, but it shouldn't be great, because you learn how to appreciate that car. It should be a hoopty, as the old school call it. A hoopty. A hoopty is gonna get you from point A to point B, but it ain't gonna look good. It ain't probably not gonna sound the best, and it probably ain't gonna run right all the time, but it'll get you from A to B, and you learn how to value that car. But versus like somebody just dropping a Range Rover in your hand and stuff like that. I watched, what was it, like Sweet 16, I think that was, when Timbaland and them bought I think his 16-year-old son like a Honda or something like that, and he wanted a Range Rover. He knew what he was doing. Excuse me. Just like every other parent. I want you to value this first before I just hand you something, because if I just hand you something of great value, you'll never properly appreciate it. And it goes the same if you always have access to everything that you possibly need right here in your phone. Go to the boroughs, go to the places where these things were creative. Then you'll have a real understanding. Look into the eyes of the people who created the lane that you're trying to walk on. That'll really tell you if you're really here for it. Okay? And then most importantly, obviously, a false sense of security, knowledge, respect, and understanding what you're doing. So let's state the obvious. Again, just prime example. If you're a crumper and you've never taken, classes, or you never traveled to like the Mecca or the South, the East, or whatever the case may be, if you've never been in a culturally rich environment to the genre of dance that you're trying to find, please don't consider yourself an expert. You cannot possibly be an expert if you have not traveled to these culturally rich places. You can't just simply be like, oh, I live in Idaho and I'm an experienced crumper, but I've never left Idaho. I ain't even gone to Ohio or New York or South Carolina or Florida. I ain't been to Kansas or none. I ain't been to none of these places, but I've been crumping for about 15 years. No, you've been existing for about 15 years. You got to break out. You got to go learn. You got to take workshops. And again, taking online workshops is cool, but physically go take them. That's how you really need to be able to apply it in real time. Be in there sweating, battle, session, get in there with the top cats. Really understand, feel the atmosphere and the environment to truly understand what you're talking about. Again, we don't need to talk about the whole teaching thing. You don't need to be teaching. Let's just transition right past that. And of course, obviously, knowledge. You don't really know what you're talking about if you've never actually had to apply it in a real environment with top tier people who know what they're doing twice as much as what you know what you're doing. And of course, the biggest one that always hits people by the kneecaps, the false sense of security that social media gives you in terms of gratification, acknowledgement, and respect. Just because simply somebody hearts your video doesn't actually mean that you truly understand the depths of what you're doing. It's okay, because everybody always likes tries, oh, well, Siler, it's just dancing, it's just expressing and stuff like that. Yeah, it's all expression and stuff like that until that particular person doesn't even know what they're doing, or they can't acknowledge it. Or better yet, they manipulate the situation and start teaching. That's why we have these conversations. It's not to say that, hey, social media didn't do a lot of great things for dancers. It did. It did a lot of great things for me. But I'm definitely still a part of the generation that understands that, hey, my generation knew what it took to actually get the respect of people in my environment and in immediate communities. I had to session with them. I had to train with them. I had to learn. I had to lose. I had to win. I had to fight. I had to do all these things. This generation doesn't require that. Only thing I got to do is post my camera up, turn the lights down, get some lights in the background, do a couple of waves and stuff like that, some neo soul music or something on SoundCloud, and guess what? Thousands of likes. But again, you have to ask the question, do you really understand what you're doing? It's not to say, okay, if you're just expressing yourself, cool, then run with that. But the biggest thing comes from when people start putting this person on a pedestal saying, oh, this person is the best waver in the world, or this is the best tutter, this is the best freestyler. We've never seen this person freestyle outside social media, so how could you possibly tell me this person is the best freestyler? Interesting. Food for thought. Let me know your thoughts on the matter. Leave me a comment down at the bottom. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, share the content, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.